Cardiovascular endurance. Of the 5 health-related components of fitness, cardiovascular endurance, muscular strength, muscular endurance, flexibility, and body composition, cardio is the most important one. What is it? What is cardiorespiratory endurance or cardiovascular endurance? Those terms are often used interchangeably. Well, it's the ability of your cardiovascular system, your lungs and blood vessels and heart, to deliver oxygen to your muscles for physical activity. Okay, so what does that actually mean? Well, let's get a little technical for a moment and start with ATP, adenosine triphosphate. It's the name of this fancy little molecule, which is basically your body's energy currency. It's what allows your muscles to contract and move. And when you use it up, that little molecule of ATP, adenosine triphosphate, 3 phosphates, becomes adenosine diphosphate, 2 phosphates. And your body's got a bunch of nifty ways to recharge it back to ATP so you can use it again. Isn't that cool? So your body's got 3 different main energy systems. The first one is quite a powerful one. No, messed it up there. Okay. I'll have to use this. Yeah. All right, try again. Cardiovascular endurance. Of the 5 health-related components of fitness, cardiovascular endurance, muscular strength, muscular endurance, flexibility, and body composition, cardiovascular endurance is the most important one, sometimes called cardiorespiratory endurance or cardiovascular endurance. Now, why? Or maybe let's start with what? What is it? What are we talking about? Well, it's the ability of your cardiovascular system, including your lungs and heart and blood vessels, to deliver oxygen to your muscles for physical activity. All right, well, that's pretty simple, but what does that really mean? Well, let's dig back a little bit and take a bit of a more nuanced look here. There's this thing called ATP. Now, you don't have to memorize this, but it's kind of cool. It stands for adenosine triphosphate. It's this fancy molecule. You've got tons of them in your system, and that's basically the body's currency. It's the molecule that allows your muscles to contract and move. So when you use it up, when it becomes depleted, it turns into ADP. So a triphosphate, adenosine triphosphate, has 3 phosphate groups. It turns into diphosphate, 2 phosphate groups. Don't have to memorize this, but your body's got a bunch of ways to recharge it back to ATP. So cool. So there are 3 main energy systems that your body uses to do this. The first is the ATP-CP system, the creatine phosphate system, and it is not cardio. It's super strong, it has a high intensity, but it only is active in maybe the first 10 seconds of exercise. An example of this might be a max lift, or really any time you start doing exercise, the first 10 seconds is this energy system. The second energy system, sometimes called the lactic acid system, it's the glycolytic energy system. It's alactic, and if these fancy words don't mean anything to you, don't stress about it. It's also not cardio, and it's responsible basically for things between 10 seconds and 60 seconds. It's also got a pretty high output, and it could be like going for a sprint that lasts more than 10 seconds. Maybe running to catch a soccer ball, or something along those lines. Lastly, we get to our third energy system. This is the aerobic energy system. This is the one that is cardio, that counts for cardio. It kicks in after about 2 minutes. It's the most efficient of the 3 energy systems, but it's also the weakest. So it doesn't have a high output, but it's way more efficient. And that would be like going for a jog or spending some time on the elliptical or things that you might think of as cardio. Now, here we've got a graph that shows a little bit how the systems, the energy systems, take turns being the primary supplier of energy. And this could change depending on the intensity of your workout. So for example, you might be in the aerobic energy system and you've been going for a slow jog for a good, I don't know, 20 minutes, and then all of a sudden a barking dog jumps out of some hidden spot and starts chasing you, and you need to sprint and go faster all of a sudden. Well, you might dig back into one of these energy systems that will activate only for a short period of time, because that's one of their drawbacks. Is although they're more powerful, they can't last as long as the oxidative or aerobic energy system, number 3. You might notice that they're not all the same strength, right? We have those 2 strong ones and one the aerobic energy system that was not as strong. That's one of the reasons, not the only one, why marathon runners go slower than sprinters. Now, there are some other reasons, but they're literally using different energy systems. Now, the basic takeaway of these three energy systems is that if it's under 2 minutes, you're not even using the aerobic energy system, so it's not cardio. You may have the experience of walking up a flight of stairs, feeling winded, and saying to yourself or to someone else, wow, that's good cardio. And that's not actually good cardio. That's not a good cardiovascular exercise. However, if you do train your cardiovascular endurance, those types of tasks will be easier for you. Really, the minimum amount of time that you need to be exercising in order to engage the aerobic energy system is 2 minutes, but the minimum amount of time you should work to get your cardio workout in is more like 20 minutes. Just because you engage the energy system doesn't mean you're actually getting a full workout. So what are the benefits of cardiovascular endurance? Why should I work on my cardio? Well, it decreases a bunch of bad stuff, like your risk of diseases like heart disease, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, osteoporosis, which has to do with bone density, which is particularly important for aging adults, and also reduces your chance of illness in general and sickness. It can help you manage your stress, and it increases a bunch of good things. So it's not just good at avoiding stuff. It increases your heart and lung function, also your immune system, your energy levels, your self-esteem, helps with weight management, helps you sleep better, and helps you deal with things cognitively better. It's amazing the benefits of cardio on cognitive performance. When you exercise, there are all kinds of brain-enhancing hormones that are produced. BDNF is one of them. IGF-1 is another one. Those are things that flood your brain. They're like miracle grow for the brain and really help you deal well and maintain your mental acuity. Also, your overall happiness, just your level of satisfaction, your mood in general. These are things that might be improved by doing some cardio exercise. So we get to the question of, okay, I want to get all those benefits. How do I get them? How often, how hard, how much, and how? And this goes back to the FITT protocol or prescription, which stands for frequency, intensity, time, and type. It's just a way of framing the parameters under which you can get these kind of benefits. So let's start with how often. Well, the answer is 3 to 5 times a week, which is most days. So if you didn't do it yesterday, you should do it today. And if you did it today, you may want to take a day off tomorrow, or you might want to do it again tomorrow. You're allowed to do cardio most days. How hard? Well, we're all real different. And what might be easy for one person could be hard for someone else. So that's why we use a very individualized measure of intensity, is how hard are your lungs and heart and blood vessels working? How hard are you working individually? And we do that by measuring our heart rate. You can get your heart rate either by finding your pulse around your neck or around your wrist, or maybe you have some kind of a heart rate measuring device. Perhaps even your phone can measure your heart rate for you. And so you take your heart rate for a certain number of time, you do the requisite math, and you get your beats per minute. Isn't that fun? So there is a theoretical maximum heart rate, and if you really want to test it, you're going to have to go into a lab and do some uncomfortable tests, but the easy way to get an approximation is 220 minus your age. So with your theoretical maximum heart rate and the ability to measure your current heart rate, we can get percentages of your maximum heart rate. And that's how we can say how hard you're working. So you should be working somewhere between 60 and 90% of your max heart rate, which leads us to talk about these different percentages. Now, just like in school, if it's under 60%, it's a fail. So you got to be at least over 60. But if you really want some benefit, you probably want to be between 70 and 85%. That's the good spot to be training your cardio. Now, to put some more concrete numbers to these, estimating someone with an approximate age of 20 makes 100% of their maximum heart rate 200. It just makes for nice and easy, even numbers. So your heart rate should be somewhere between 120 beats per minute and 180 beats per minute. For the ideal zone, maybe between 150 and 170. Now, that doesn't mean you need to always be measuring your heart rate if you want to make sure you're doing cardio well, but you might do this once or twice and then get a sense for how hard it feels to be working in this zone, the zone of maximum benefit for your cardio exercise. And spoiler alert, it feels kind of tough. You'll be breathing heavily, you'll feel your heart racing, you'll probably be sweating and working fairly hard. So then the question is how much, right? And the answer is, we already talked about it, at least 20 minutes. You can go up to an hour if you want. Maybe if you're doing less sessions, less frequent sessions, perhaps an hour is more appropriate. But that's what we're aiming for. And then how? Well, there are two main, I suppose, flavors of cardio. There's continuous training where you just go on and on a specific thing. Maybe that would be hopping on a treadmill or elliptical and just deciding I'm going to work at, resistance 5 for 25 minutes. And you just go ahead and do that. Another option is interval training, which actually has nothing to do with music. This is just a visual pun for your enjoyment. And interval training is when you vary the intensity according to certain amount of preset time intervals. So you might go for a sprint and then a bit of a recovery, or you might go uphill and then downhill, or perhaps work hard for 20 seconds and then take a 40-second rest, or whatever kind of interval training you'd like. The advantage of interval training is, in general, it can be more efficient or effective at getting your training effect. The disadvantage is that it requires a bit more organization, and maybe you just want to put your earphones in and go for a run and not worry about the intensity too much, and that's great too. Do whatever works for you. But let's really answer concretely how. How could be any way that you can do cardio. So running, swimming, biking, cross-country skiing, really any kind of activity or sport that gets your body moving and your heart pumping in the right zone for the right amount of time, that'll be you doing a good job. So cardio is the number one health-related component of fitness. It's the most important. And because of that, I encourage you to quit stalling, start hauling, and we'll be calling you ballin' in no time. Thanks, everybody. Hope you have a great day and get your cardio exercise in.